Welcome to Planning with Purpose. I'm Dillon Hakes. I'm joined by Keith Brandt. Keith, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
In recognition of Mother's Day, which is coming up, and Father's Day, which is right around the corner, we have an interesting topic for a video today. We're talking about parents as they age, and how to deal with that as a family. Keith, why is the topic of bridging the gap between aging parents and kids so important?
I think that the way things are going in this country right now, people are living longer, and that's been going on for quite a while. But as we live longer, that means that there's more issues that have to be dealt with. In the old days, most people died very quickly. Now with things like Alzheimer's and other advances in healthcare, somebody falls and breaks a hip. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to pass away, but it does mean you might need help. So it's kind of an ongoing problem, and certainly something that we see a lot with our clients, their parents, or our clients and their kids or grandkids. And we think it's important to sort of have a plan in terms of what's going to happen as we get older and if we don't pass away suddenly.
What type of planning are you referring to? Like what is the broad scope of planning? Walk us through some of the details or situations that people should be thinking about and should be talking about ahead of time, before, the worst happens and, they're thrown into an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, I think there's a few different areas. From a technical standpoint, there's the legal documentation. Do we have wills? Do we have trusts? Are those things in place? And importantly, are the kids familiar with what they're going to be asked to do? The other part, and I think people in general are pretty good about getting those documents put together, maybe not so good at involving their kids or the people that are going to step in terms of what's happening now and what will they need to do. The other issue, I think, are in some ways more challenging, and that's what's your plan as you get older? Do you want to move into a continuing care retirement community? If so, have you picked a place out? Probably the most common is, no, I want to stay in my house. Okay, that's great. If you're going to stay in your house, who's going to take care of you? And if you're going to hire people to care for you, who's going to do that? And if it's a couple, you got to decide that together, but also you got to have your kids involved. So there's a lot of logistical things around that.
Walk us through, and this is something that we've talked to clients about a lot. You've had quite a few instances where, the planning either wasn't done adequately, or you've had clients who have run into issues around the planning process. Talk us through some of the real life situations that you've encountered, on your day-to-day job.
Yeah. We work with a lot of people, and we work with a lot of folks for years and even decades. And as they get older, we have conversations. But I would say that it's always difficult to get the timing right. So I had a client, she and her husband had decided they were going to move into a continuing care retirement community, but not quite yet. And that's kind of a common thing. It's like, yeah, we're going to do that when we need to. So they weren't ready. And then they finally decided, okay, we're ready to move. They picked out a place to move into. They decided they were going to sell their house. And lo and behold, the husband passed away. And so the wife now had to get the house ready to sell. She had to clear out everything. They've lived there for 30 some years and then move into the place on her own, which wasn't really the original plan. I have another situation now where I have a husband and wife, and the husband's started suffering from dementia. And we talk about kind of what's the plan as he gets older, or really as his condition becomes worse. And it's really challenging because she can't talk to him about it at this point in time. He doesn't want to discuss it. He's already not fully on top of things. And so it's really challenging about what's the next step. And it would have been, I think, a lot better if earlier we had decided if I end up with dementia, you end up with dementia, what's the plan so that we're part of it? And so many times in these things, these situations, I think we end up with having to make decisions that we haven't talked about beforehand. And so one person's making a decision for the other. Sometimes the kid's making a decision for the parents, or a spouse is making a decision for the co-spouse. And we don't really know what the person wanted because we didn't talk about it. And now they're not able to have that conversation.
So Keith, talking about, these conversations is obviously very important, but when exactly should these topics be brought up? When is the best time to approach these conversations and, start planning around this stuff?
Yeah. I think when you want to have these conversations before a problem arises. And so that's a fairly open window, right? It's kind of like estate planning. You don't really have to have an estate plan until somebody passes away or becomes incapacitated. So my thought on these things is to have a conversation sooner rather than later. And really, when would be now? And if you're a grandparent listening to this thing and you're in your 80s or 90s and you haven't had that conversation, have it today. If you're a parent and you've got older parents that are still with us, hopefully they're still doing great, but probably sometime in the next 10 or 20 years, they might need your help. And so I would say it's Mother's Day. It's a great time to bring up the topic and say, can we sit down maybe sometime in the next week or month and have a conversation about what your plans are, so I know how to take care of things in a way that you want.
So turning from the when to the what and the how, how should people approach these conversations, and what should be their primary focus, for the lowest hanging fruit to make sure that they're on top of and, that have been talked about?
Yeah. Again, I think there's a couple of angles that you want to make sure you talk about. For me, the most important thing would be what's our plan for care as we age, where and how, and then also what's going on from a financial standpoint, and to bring the next generation to be involved in that. So people are often reluctant to talk about their money with their kids, or grandparents with their kids or grandchildren, and I understand that reluctance. But the reality is, if your kids have to step in to take care of your finances, and they have no idea what's going on, or your spouse has to step in to take care of your finances and they don't know what's going on, that's a problem. In an extreme case, we've had a spouse pass away and the surviving spouse will call and say, I don't even know where the checkbook is. I don't even know where my bank accounts are. That's the worst case. But even if it's not your spouse or both spouses are involved, think about your kids having to all of a sudden come in, pay your bills, pay your income taxes, and oversee your investments. Well, do they know where they are? And it's also a fair point from your kids' standpoint. They're worried about you and they want to make sure you're okay. So we'll talk to clients and say, how are your parents financially? Are you going to need to help them as they get older? And they'll say, I don't know. Mom and dad never talked to me about this stuff. Well, at some point, you're going to have to take care of mom and dad's money, probably either when they're gone or while they're alive. And so let's have those conversations now so everybody knows what you want, as opposed to, yeah, I don't know, he's in the hospital. I have no idea what he wants, but now I got to make all the decisions. I don't think that's a good outcome.
Absolutely. What would you say to clients or people who are listening to this and think that this topic may be really difficult to approach? The relationship obviously could be very difficult, but just, bringing a topic like this up could be difficult. What are some strategies that people could employ to make that a little bit easier?
Yeah. All of these topics can be difficult to approach. And depending on family dynamics, that can be a whole nother level of challenge. One of the things that I think helps is to bring in a third party. And so, and you could have any person be the third party. What we typically do is we'll say, let's have a family meeting. And in advance of the family meeting, we'll put together an agenda. And usually the first thing will be a review of their financial situation. We'll have a listing of assets that they have, what their will and trust says, what their hopes are from a care standpoint. So we'll have an agenda with some data, and we'll give it to the parents to say, look at this. Is this okay with you that we're going to share this with your kids or kid or whoever it is? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I don't want to talk about this or that. We'll say, okay, let's discuss why it's on there, but make sure it's okay with you. It's your situation, but we're going to advocate more transparency, the better, because the better they understand you, the more they're going to be able to do what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion. I think having an agenda, having a plan of attack for what you're going to talk about, what you're going to go through, and just staying organized and staying on topic as best as possible.
It's interesting when you do that, how many questions the kids have that the parents hadn't really thought about, or we hadn't thought about. It's like we sit down and the kids are like, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? It's like, oh yeah, those are good questions, because they're going to be in the position that they have to take care of you, and they want to do a good job usually.
Turning to you hit on it a little bit, the financial picture, but talk to us a little bit about how this type of planning fits into the broader financial picture, because obviously that's an incredibly important component.
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are things that you can do, parents can do in terms of sort of their estate planning that'll have very different implications for their kids or grandkids. And to the extent that we've done some planning for grandparents, kids, and grandkids, we can do some things that will be better for everybody. Less taxes, more appropriate depending on the different family situations. And it's sometimes nice, again, as a parent, to get the input of my kids about what I might be thinking about doing for them or what I might do for their grandchildren. So that financial aspect is an important one. And again, people are sometimes reluctant to share that.
Keith, talking about successor trustees and versus a co-trustee, when is a good time, or when is the appropriate time to have the conversation about when a successor trustee might, prematurely step up and help out and be a co-trustee and help out, more actively in the current time?
Yeah, I think one issue is hopefully when you've decided who the successor trustee will be, that you've had a conversation with them, and that's usually when you're planning. Assuming we've done that and the successor trustee knows they're going to be a successor trustee, if not now, to go through the trust with them so that they understand what their roles are. And then the big question is, when do they get involved? And so it's easy if we pass away, then the successor trustee is in charge. The more typical thing we see nowadays is, again, I'm getting older and maybe I'm not as interested in doing things, or I'm not as able to do things. And so it's nice to maybe have that successor trustee become a co-trustee, again, before I can't do anything. So I'll often encourage our clients to say, you know what, this is a lot of work to file your taxes, to pay your bills, to keep track of your bank accounts and your investment accounts. Why don't we see if a successor trustee is maybe willing to become a co-trustee now? And then what that means is you still have full control of everything, but we want to let them help out a little bit. We could say, yeah, I don't really want to bother paying bills. Will you take that over? So it's a good way for the successor trustee to kind of step in, but you don't have to say, yeah, I don't want to do anything anymore. So it's a nice way to do that. But that way we don't have to worry about the doctors deciding whether I'm competent or not. We just have them step in gradually. And if it gets to where I don't want to do anything, I can sign a letter that says I resign, and now my son or daughter is in charge of all my financial affairs. I
think that's great advice. Now, putting a bow on this and wrapping it up, what is your advice for people in general? Obviously, they should have these conversations. If they're, if they're nervous about having the conversations or think it might be difficult, they obviously can reach out to you and you can facilitate, getting the ball rolling and getting things started.
Yeah, I mean, all of the advisors here at California Wealth Transitions have done this, and I think that's a good place to do it. You might ask your CPA if that's something that they're willing to do. I think it's important that there be sort of a financial summary of what's going on. And so a lot of times that's nice to have an outsider provide that. But essentially, they're going to put together the agenda and then they're going to facilitate the conversation. But ultimately, the decisions are 100% up to you and your kids. We just want to help you guys communicate to make sure that, again, when the time comes, everybody knows what everybody's supposed to do.
I think that's fantastic advice. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for Planning with Purpose. We wish everybody a happy Mother's Day, a great weekend. And Keith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.